If you are ready, kick us off, sir, and we will take your lead.
Well, I'm glad that everybody showed up, and today, for a lot of you who don't know why we're here, we're talking about the Central Business District. For some of you who know a little bit about the Central Business District, what you've got to understand is the Central Business District is it's a program that's actually really solid. It isn't. It's a program that allows decaying areas to be empowered. It's a program that allows upstart companies to make their projects come to fruition. It is one of those things that has gotten some flack for being a corporate giveaway or whatever, but that's really not the case and not how the program works. It's a bit of a red herring when people tell me that. Our Central Business District allows for GPLETs to exist on projects. We have two different types of GPLETs that exist. We have a 25-year GPLET and we have a 7-year GPLET. A GPLET is a government property excise lease tax. That means that the government takes like an honorary deed to your property, and your property taxes are abated after you've improved them. That doesn't mean you don't pay zero taxes. That doesn't mean that the government gives you money. It doesn't mean it's not a giveaway to that sense. All it means is that your assessed value is locked over that 7-year period. Meaning if you have an empty lot that you're paying $1,500 a year in property taxes on, and you build a 7-story building for 7 years, you still pay that $1,500 in property taxes. And a lot of projects can survive. But the good news is one, there's an in lieu tax that the city still collects. And the better part is that we also collect those impact fees. So 99% of the time, I'd say 95% of the GPLETs we've done in the Central Business District in Tucson have actually come out to a net profit for the government in tax money. In other words, we make more money than if the GPLET didn't exist and we just left the lot vacant. So that's what the program is designed to do. And there have been multinational corporations who've applied for them and gotten them, but there's also been startups that are leveraged to the hilt, and they're doing their best to do something new. And so we have to keep that in mind. None of the Central Business District covers Ward 2. I've advocated that we start stretching it east because there are places out east that could use a GPLET. One of the most prominent ones is Grant and Alvernon. GPLETs are made for places like Grant and Alvernon where you've got a corridor coming east that is just really suffering. And I'd love for the GPLET to head east. I'd also love to see GPLETs in aviation corridors and in areas where we're trying to attract surplus jobs. And those are jobs where the people who are getting paid from the job are, that money is coming from out of town. So a company that manufactures and ships out of Tucson or does multimedia, and that multimedia is paid for through Netflix or whatever streaming application a person subscribes to, and it becomes an export. Also knowledge, astronomy, the Mirror Lab, primary jobs. So the idea is to build a Central Business District that also has primary jobs, attracts market rate housing and things of other nature. So I guess that's my kickoff. I hope I covered everything. I hope I covered everything, and I hope that that kind of clarifies for everybody who's here. Kind of, it's a two-pronged thing, but GPLETs are definitely something that are good for Tucson, and obviously for us, we want to do it right. We want to have a Central Business District in Tucson that makes sense and that serves our community at its best.
Vice Mayor, thank you. Thank you. That was really helpful. Great table set. Now, are you driving, sir?
No, I'm parked.
Okay, good. Thank you for making time. I know that you've got competing priorities, and grateful that we won.
We're trying to get we're working the vaccine site. The city's opening a vaccine site, and so for everybody's here, that's going to enable us to do an extra 2,800 vaccines next week
on top of what the county program's already doing, and ultimately an extra probably 5,000 vaccines a week. So we'll be able to up our county total to 17,000 vaccines a week within the next week or so. And we're just working out the final details, but really honored to be here and make time for this.
Thank you for doing that. And I don't know what the appropriate response is, but I'm going to give you a hallelujah for that. Thank you. Be safe. And for your service, your leadership, and the clarity of your purpose. Thank you. Go back.
Thanks for having me, everybody. You guys have a great day. I'm going to go camera off, but I'm still going to listen in. Okay.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, sir. All right. Okay. That was, boy, vaccines. That's good news about vaccines. Thank you all for making time. 90 minutes on a Saturday, competing priorities, gorgeous weather. You picked this as the place to show up and be present. So grateful for that. We are recording the session, just so you know. It's really so that we don't miss a single idea in any of our note taking. Let me just sort of extend a little bit more of what the Vice Mayor was saying. I want to answer the why we're here. I'm going to zoom you out a little bit to show you sort of the arc of effort, right? So the Central Business District, which was first adopted in 2012, was renewed just this past September by the Mayor and Council for an additional 10 years. This spring, we're hoping in February, March timeframe, the Mayor and Council will determine the future of the CBD, its potential expansion, and if they decide to expand it, where its future boundaries, what its future boundaries would be. Based on that, they will then determine how best to use the G-Plat that the Vice Mayor referenced, as well as how to use it, how to maximize it as a tool and as a process to allow the community to achieve what it wants for the CBD. Following that council's renewal of the CBD in September, they made a decision, actually a commitment, to undertake a really extensive and energetic outreach effort to engage community in providing input. And that is what brings us here together today. So that's the why. Now let me just go a little bit into the how. First, we've got 7 of these virtual community engagement sessions. This is number 5. There are 2 more scheduled, one on Friday, one next Saturday afternoon. Will be done after the one. That will be a total of 7 of those. A key component of each of these community conversations is we are together going to complete a 9-question survey. That survey is critical in the overall engagement effort because it will help provide substantive input to the Mayor and Council. Beyond the community sessions where we're going to complete the survey together, that survey will also be available. It's available on the city's website in English and Spanish. In addition, paper copies are available through all of the ward offices, both in English and Spanish. And then finally, by the end of this week, it will appear in 2 papers in Tucson with an all-call invitation for any resident, any community member to complete it with the encouragement actually to do that. So the goal really of the survey is to encourage as many residents as we can to complete the survey so that the council has the benefit of hearing from as many people as possible. We need your help. Please tell your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues, your peers to complete the survey. That would be really helpful. In addition, because you're participating here today, on Monday, I believe it's Monday, right, Kevin? We're not emailing people on Sunday. I think it's Monday. You will receive another email. And in that email, there's an opportunity for you to express additional ideas, additional comments, additional concerns with as much time as you want. Because I think what happens is we have a conversation and then we think of all the other things as we contemplate and are thoughtful and sort of processing the discussion. We want to capture that wisdom too. So please, when you get that email, use that as an opportunity to express even more views if you have. Finally, that email that you receive on Monday will also ask you a very simple question. Please include me and keep me engaged and updated as we go through the process. Encourage you all to say yes to that. Lastly, on that website, that city's website, there is a master Q&A document that's going to be created. So we're taking all of the questions, whether they appear in the chats, in conversation, through the survey, through the website, all of those will be thematically summarized and placed into a master Q&A document that then will be additional source of input for the mayor and the council. By the end of January, our hope, therefore, is that the mayor and council is going to see the results from all 7 of the community convenings. They will see the quantitative results from the survey. They will see all of the summary of the comments and questions surfaced by whoever surfaced them. And in addition, they will receive results of an academic research study that they've undertaken with the University of Arizona. They're going to use all of that as information, as input to guide their discussion about potential modification of the CBD boundaries and of the GPLET process. Based on that discussion and whatever consensus direction emerges from the Marion Council, then the staff is going to prepare a modified CBD boundary map and a GPLET application and policy so that later this spring, could be March, could be April, the mayor and the council will consider adoption of proposed changes. So that's the why, that's the how, and now let's come down to the 90 minutes that we've got together. So here's what we've got for today. 4 really simple goals. 1, we want to level set just a shared understanding of the CBD and the GPLET, and Vice Mayor Cunningham really put us on a track he started with a really tight explanation. We want to make sure that we give you enough so that we can all be having the same conversation. It is not the case that we will all agree, but we at least all want to be having the same conversation. Secondly, we're going to do a couple of short activities today to discover what you want. What is your vision for the future of this community? What are your fears or your your views of what challenges we might face in achieving that vision? Third, we'll focus on that CBD and GPLET and capture your thoughts, your perspectives, your desires, your priorities, your fears by completing together that 9-question survey. And then finally, at the end, we will have some open discussion. And so that's how today is going to be constructed. There's only a few little agreements that I would seek to have your pinky promise in response to. 1, vigor and brevity really matter when there's a whole bunch of folks on a time-limited Zoom call. If you do the whole soliloquy, we screw each other, right? Sorry, that wasn't very eloquent, but you get the point. So pinky promise, vigor and brevity. Let's share your ideas, share your solutions, do it with vigor and brevity. Secondly, if you're not speaking, please hit mute so that the background noise isn't distracting to the rest. And then finally, you'll see that the chat function is, if you can find it, just access it through Zoom. Feel free to put anything into the chat that you wish. Questions that can be answered in real time. We've got staff that are monitoring that, are going to try to answer them in real time. And remember, whatever goes in there will be summarized and shared with the mayor and the council. So that's all of the process stuff. Now let me tell you about a cool little feature. And I think it's really special and it's very innovative for Little Tucson. Here's what you're doing. One little feature of this community engagement effort are 3 individuals. We call them bridge builders. And their role in this process on the team is to do just that. It is to build bridges of engagement throughout the entire process. All 3 are rooted in the community. They've got long history of community involvement. They are well versed in the topics at hand, which I think makes them uniquely qualified to help ensure the most diverse and widespread participation throughout the entire community engagement process. They will also assist in the preparation of the recommendations that will be presented ultimately to the mayor and the council. And to kick us off, I want each of the 3 of them to quickly show us who they are, tell us a little about themselves. Vigor and brevity, they're going to show you what that looks like. So Frankie, I see you first.
I'll go first.
Kick it to you. Go. I see vigor and brevity coming from your box.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this process. I run the Women's Business Center. We help small businesses. I'm very well connected with the small businesses local. So your input is very important for me. Help me make the right recommendations. I'll be here listening, taking notes, and please, I want to hear from the participants to see what the feedback is like. So thank you for having me here.
Great. Did you say your name?
Frankie Villegas.
There she is. So the other 2, you want to thumb wrestle to see who goes next? I don't know how you do that on Zoom, so I just thought I'd throw it out there. Shay, I see you. Why don't you take it next?
Hi, my name is Shreya Jimenez, also go by Shay, if that's easier. I'm a Southside resident. I also own a home in the 05 area. Been a part of a lot of different planning and community efforts over the past few years. I have also a small business owner myself. I have a small design startup, Cuadro LLC. So that's it. And I'm just here to listen, and thank you everyone for your time.
And how long has your family been here?
Oh yeah, my family's been here for 5 generations. So again, I understand a lot of the fears and the struggles. My family, we lived. Their history was of displacement. With the urban renewal, and my great grandmother's home got bulldozed. As part of that process. So again, I understand the fears and kind of but also as a design professional, I also understand development. And so, it's a tough one. It really is a tough one. And I think we do have to be aware of all the consequences of all the decisions.
It's great. Shay, thank you. And Corky.
Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Corky Poster. I'm pleased to be working with Frankie and Shay. I'm an architect and planner with Poster Murtaugh McDonald, and I've had a 47-year career in Tucson working in affordable housing, community planning, historic preservation, and community facilities. I've done neighborhood planning everywhere from the very south side in the Elvira neighborhood all the way north to Flowing Wells. And I had the great opportunity to, last count, build about 4,700 units of affordable housing. And the three of us are really looking for direction from the folks on the call on how the CBD in particular can help you and your family and your neighborhood and your business. So I'm pleased to be here. Thank you.
That's great. Delighted that all three of you are here. And for those of you that were trying to do the computation of the math, 47 years. So he was the first 3-year-old to start in the business. So you're welcome, Corky. I think did I say it exactly how you wanted me to? That's it. All right. So let's get into today's agenda. I think I said we've got 4 objectives. First one is to level set and have a common understanding of this thing, the topic that we're discussing here. So to do that, the next 2 people are going to walk us through, give us some background in the Central Business District. So what is it? The what has it been? The what have we done with it up until this point? So to do that, we're going to hear from Barbara Coffey, who is Director of Economic Initiatives, and Corin Manning, who is the Planning Administrator at Planning and Development Services. So a dynamic duo. I think, Barbara, I'm going to pass the baton to you, right?
Yes, thank you, Poonam. You might tell everyone a little bit about you while I pull up my slides. I realized we got so excited about vaccinations that maybe didn't hear where you're from and how you landed here.
That's so cute. So I could, she wants me to do some filler because she got so excited about the vaccine, she forgot to get her PowerPoint presentation out. So that's a little humiliating for her, but we'll love her through that, right? It is my, but literally I said at the beginning, I meant it. I feel like a really grateful electron around your nucleus. I am based in Las Vegas, Nevada, Henderson actually. So that is where I come to you live. I've been to Tucson several times. I've got friends there. I have a real appreciation for the depth and the diversity and the vibrancy and the love of your community. Those are sort of the associations that I have with it. And if I keep going, I'll start with I was to a Brown family, and then it could get all twisted. So
that's great.
You're ready to go.
Fantastic. I just wanted to be sure that everyone knew that we had a special facilitator for this process. So that's fantastic. So let me tell you a little bit about the Central Business District. What you're seeing on the screen now is in red, the map of our existing Central Business District. It was created in 2012 when Mayor and Council adopted this area. And it is a contiguous geographical area that was formed according to state statutes. So it did meet all of the requirements. It is not more than 2.5% of the total land area of the city. So there are some constraints in terms of the size and shapes as how this district can be created. It has with it, when a city, a local government designates a central business district, it has the opportunity to utilize a tool which we call the Government Property Lease Excise Tax, or GPLET. And again, you heard Vice Mayor Cunningham talk a little bit about that. And so again, that idea is that the 8-year tax abatement that it allows for in the Central Business District for properties that are developing, they must increase by 100% in assessed valuation once that development occurs. There have been 23 GPLET projects or approved projects since 2013 here in the city of Tucson that have received that 8-year tax abatement. To give you a perspective, the pre-GPLET value total of all those properties was just north of $40 million. When we do the economic impact analysis on these projects in order to determine the incentive and the opportunity to move forward, the value of the estimated post-GPLET projects, once they're constructed and on the tax rolls, is more than $220 million. And when we looked last fall, when we brought a report back to Mayor and Council, the 2020 assessed value totals of all of those 23 projects, except for the 6 not completed, not quite yet constructed, that assessed value total was just north of $90 million. So you can see it's already at work. All but 5 of those projects have received the certificate of occupancy, the rest under construction. All but 3 have been developed by local entities and development firms. All but 1 GPLET, I'll let you know, there's an outlier that based on that 2020 assessed valuation analysis was at 93% of an increase in value entering its 4th year, so tracking in that direction. And just to give you an idea of what occurred, the GPLET program has helped convert 8 parking lots. It has activated 5 vacant buildings. 5 of the projects were inclusive of rehabilitation or historic preservation projects. And 1 of the projects developed a vacant lot. And none of the projects that we have listed and approved at the City of Tucson replaced single-family home. So just because pictures tell a lot better story, this is a look at what has occurred. This is an example of one of the parking lots that was converted into the Trinity office project. And that opened last year, is now leasing, and it is a very sustainable, environmentally friendly office project from what I understand. This picture may be familiar to you. It's a former Motel 6 property. And now it's the Tucson Boutique Hotel. It opened July 4th weekend in the middle of a pandemic. So again, a new hotel property from what was certainly not a contributing property from the pictures you saw prior. Now this project involved some historic preservation. This was built in 1952. It was the First Baptist Church school building in downtown. And now it is home to the headquarters for Mr. Car Wash. So again, creating, I think, what was an eyesore into an icon, and certainly created a historic preservation opportunity. And speaking of icons, this is the tallest building in Tucson. This is One South Church, but the hard corner there right below it was ripe for development. And now you have the Rendezvous Urban Flats that opened again last year. And that is 100 units now of residential, just to add to the many hundreds of units that are either under construction or have opened in downtown. But it's not all rosy. It's not all easy, and it's certainly not without its challenges. And so I wanted to call your attention to some things that have created some heartburn, and that has, you know, certainly the community has expressed strong opinion about, and that we struggle with as a staff and elected officials. The language in the state statutes regarding slum and blight as a requirement for the creation of the Central Business District is really nothing short of offensive. It's a challenge to have your neighborhood have a label on it such as slum and blight. It's a challenge to have that kind of criteria for the creation of the Central Business District. Also, I want to point out that the GPLET is one program. It is one tool. It alone does not create all the problems, nor does it solve all the issues. And so it is something to keep in mind that a lot of things are happening in the downtown, a lot of change occurs, and a lot of other factors go into that. And then finally, something just to note that affordable housing projects, while we know how important it is to have an array of affordable housing and different housing price points, that many of the affordable housing projects, especially those using LIHTC or the low-income housing tax credits, are not also suitable or able to utilize the GPLET. So again, we've got lots of experts on the call here today that are familiar with that, and I know Corky's one of those, and we'll certainly be looking at what that means. With that, I want to turn it over to my partner in Planning and Development Services, because I think she will be able to share with you some other things that have certainly impacted the development and the transformation of downtown. Corin?
Thank you, Barbara, and hello, everyone. Can you see my screen?
You can.
Yes, okay, great. I am Corinne Manning, Planning Administrator at Planning and Development Services, and I just want to share a little bit more along the same lines of what Barbara has been talking about, and share a little bit more about some of the other tools that we have as a city that are designed to complement the work that the Central Business District and the GPLET does to incentivize economic development. As Barbara said, this tool cannot do everything that our city needs in terms of economic development, and it's also not meant to work in isolation or on its own. The GPLET is really just one financial incentive that's meant to work with other tools to support sustainable urban infill development in our downtown. And this is something that was part of a very intentional decision made by our community through a lot of discussion and planning and our elected officials in the past decades when we chose to invest in a streetcar and bringing new transit to Tucson. That investment came about as a result of years of advocacy by community members and elected officials to make that investment in the streetcar. And we wanted to make sure to be able to capitalize on that investment by facilitating more development, more transit-oriented and pedestrian-friendly development in our downtown to complement that streetcar and make it really usable, build ridership, and restore and revitalize our downtown area. So streetcar is a really important piece of this puzzle. So are financial incentives, which does not just include the GPLET. There's other financial incentives out there that support downtown development, such as the Rio Nuevo district and some other tools. So the third piece in the middle there of that diagram is zoning regulations. Zoning controls what can be built on a particular site, what uses are allowed, and what it looks like. And so we also have tools to facilitate this kind of urban infill development that we want in our downtown. One of the primary tools is the infill incentive district. So I want to just touch on that briefly because the infill incentive district has also been used by many of the projects that use the GPLET. Not all, but most of those projects also used this tool, the infill incentive district. However, I want to point out that the IID, or infill incentive district, is what allowed that project to be transit-oriented, mixed-use, pedestrian-friendly, whereas the GPLET provides the financial incentives. So both of these tools play a pretty important role, but distinct roles in making that project happen. So the IID also has a couple important features in that it has specific design standards that these projects must meet in order to make sure that this is high quality design for downtown, that it supports a more active, pedestrian-friendly streetscape, et cetera, and that these projects must preserve any historic resources and assets. That's really important to preserving the unique character of our downtown and adjacent neighborhoods. The IID was established by Mayor and Council in 2010, so right around the same time the CBD was established, and there have been a lot of modifications made over time. There were some pretty significant changes around 2015. The kind of earlier phase of the IID, kind of a precursor to what we currently have, allowed student housing projects to use this tool. That was not really in line with the goals and needs for our community. So modifications were made to ensure that that could only be by special exception granted by Mayor and Council. Since that special approval for student housing was put in place, no student housing projects have chosen to use the IID. So these tools are all tools that we want to periodically reevaluate, assess how it is meeting our local community needs, and make changes where warranted. The IID has a very similar boundary and shape to the central business. Again, by design, these are meant to work together in similar areas. It covers downtown as well as adjacent corridors like Stone, Oracle, along I-10, et cetera. What it doesn't include is any residential neighborhoods, the central kind of core parts of residential neighborhoods, because the goal is really around transit corridors and mixed-use development along our commercial corridors. The IID also has distinct sub-areas that all have distinct guidelines based on that local context. So what can be built in downtown, you know, more intense uses are not the same as what can be built in the more outlying areas. The IID has created over 1,500 units of housing for our community since it was established. Several hundred of those are senior and affordable housing. And it's also incentivized or allowed more commercial space, over 500,000 square feet for new businesses and jobs. Many of these are projects we call minor projects. These are usually smaller scale, which allow local businesses to stay in the downtown area, stay along the streetcar, and actually grow their business, such as Time Market, Presta Coffee. A number of local businesses have been able to utilize this. So here's an example of a major corridor in downtown Tucson, Stone and Broadway. The two sites to the east and west of Stone show, you can see what it looked like in 2011 before the Infill Incentive District, before the Central Business District was established. We had an office building that was getting a little bit out of date. Next to it was a one-story low-rise office structure. And on one corner was surface parking. After the IID allowed some projects to go onto these sites, or these property owners chose to use the IID, we see new affordable housing, new market rate housing, active uses on the ground floor, and it's all anchored around a streetcar stop so that people living in these apartments and utilizing these businesses, patronizing these businesses, can get there on transit, can also, just walk in the downtown area, creating that walkable environment. So on the left is Westerner and West Point Apartments. That is affordable housing. That did not use the GPLET because, as Barbara mentioned, it can be challenging for affordable projects to use the GPLET, but they had other financing tools. It also included historic preservation. That older building was rehabbed and reused. The other site was a parking lot, and now that what was a parking lot has been brought to life with more housing and medical office. Here's another scale of project, Cirrus Visual. This is on North Stone, just north of downtown. It was at one time an auto-related use. That use relocated, and it was rehabbed and adaptively reused and turned into a new office for Cirrus Visual, allowing that small business to relocate and expand. And this project was also facilitated with the GPLET. So again, both the IID and the GPLET worked together to facilitate this small business expansion in downtown. And with that, back to you, Poonam.
Thank you. So hopefully that was really, I learn every single time I hear it, and I've heard it 5 times. Quick question, this presentation is available on the website for those that may want it, correct? Remind me, Barbara, Corin?
I'm not sure these have been posted yet, but I'm pretty sure that's the plan.
So yes.
Poonam, we haven't posted the presentations, but each of the sessions has been recorded and is available online.
Yes.
So the presentations, thank you. So you can review any of the 5 conversations to date, and it'll be featured in each of them. Okay, now it's time for us to do a little work. For this activity, I want you to zoom way out. Stop for a second and think about a decade from now, looking over the bow of the ship, looking up and over. And here's the question. The answer is going to be in the chat. So if you haven't got your chat open, please open it up. You're going to answer the question in the chat by using one word, and it's to answer the following question. Think now about Tucson in 2030, or maybe it's 2031. It is January 16th, 2021 right now. At least a decade from now is what I want you to be thinking about. Then, what is the one adjective, that one word that represents the adjective that you would like to claim as a description for Tucson a decade from now? Or if I ask it a different way, what do you want to be true about our community 10 years from now? Or if I ask it another way, what promise do you want to deliver to a generation that you haven't yet met? In one word, what is it? Vibrant. This is great. So David, I'm going to turn to a few of you and say, tell us more. So vibrant, is that you want lots of colors? What do you want? What does that mean? Give us vigor and brevity. Tell us what vibrant means.
Well, actually, I'm colorblind, so it has nothing to do with colors. But what it means is energy, vibrancy. It means having a place that people want to be, want to go, want to be active, want to support the community in. They're patronizing the arts and cultures that are centered downtown in the CBD. They're patronizing the restaurants and the small business. So vibrancy is economic vibrancy. You know, there's an energy to what's going on in the CBD. That's what I'd like to see.
Thank you. So Demian, I see the word destination.
Yeah, I think, I think we as a community need to cultivate a place that is, I mean, a lot of these words are interrelated, but that is inclusive and that is a place people want to go. I think we've started to do that in our downtown. But how do we actually focus on building a city that, has an aesthetic conception built into our design projects?
Thank you. Thank you. Don Womack, you said equity. Tell us what you mean by equity. A little bit more, please.
No, I think it should take everyone into consideration and try to be fair for every citizen in Tucson, and not just the business community, but try to bring everybody together.
Yeah, so the promises that we've heard, vibrancy, dynamism, energy, what I just heard you say is that needs to be equally heard by everybody, regardless of socioeconomics and any other dimension. I got it. Okay, so I'm going to give real innovation to Fletcher for violating the one-word answer and just ignoring it and smushing a sense of place, which I love. Tell us quickly what you mean by sense of place.
I think that's one word. Is sense of place one word?
It is now. It is now.
Damien used it in one word, destination. We have a culture, a history that's unique, multiple generations of families. When people think about Tucson, I want them to think what that means. And as we develop and grow and incentivize, keeping that culture described as the sense of place that the reason we all live here is important as we go forward.
It's wonderful. So the attributes of Tucson that make it uniquely Tucson, the fact that Shay's got 5 generations of life, that you've got vibrant cultural diversity, that you've got, rich history. All of that is what you mean by let's have that all be in the place as we create the sense of place, so we don't lose any of that.
And a lot of our developers are out of town, so they're bringing Dallas with them, and Scottsdale, and Seattle, and Portland, and
we are nobody's hostage. We are nobody's hostage.
So how do we keep Tucson?
Okay, so here it is. This is simply a depiction of what you just said. The larger the word, the more times it was said. So thank you. That is a gorgeous. Don Womack said it. Gorgeous. That is a beautiful vision. Now, same chat response, same limit to one word, slightly different question. In a single word, what do you think is going to be the single biggest challenge that we will face and need to overcome to achieve or manifest that extraordinary vision you just articulated? It's going to get in our way. What are we going to have to manage through? What's the single biggest challenge? Wilda, I'm going to come to you. Vigor and brevity, tell us what you mean by poverty.
It's no secret that Tucson is on top of the list in terms of people in poverty. And along with innovation and, making life better, that's a big problem. In terms of what we're doing with Deeply, I think it's a good program and the other programs, but how do we address the problem we have with poverty as we are thinking of all these wonderful ideas moving forward? I hope that this is never left out.
Yeah, let me play it back. So we just talked about the vision of what it could be, and what you're observing for all of us, a little legitimately so, is that people in poverty are often denied the promises that we claim we make to everyone. And so
that sums it up. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Roadblocks. David, is that like a traffic cone issue, or what do you mean?
Well, my perspective comes from being an accountant, and so I deal a lot of business owners, and what kills deals is time. So if we put up too many roadblocks to get development done, to get projects approved or disapproved, we hurt everybody. So I guess we need to have a process that facilitates the timely resolution of development, whether it's going to go forward or not, and that people understand for a city to prosper, we have to keep moving forward. So, and that benefits everybody, and it helps people out of poverty, and it gets people jobs. So avoid the roadblocks, avoid inertia, avoid the status quo, and be open to new things.
Great. You know, every time I watch water flow, I am struck that water never says, oh, this rock is too big for me to go around. It just keeps flowing. It just keeps moving. And communities that get to extraordinary results operate the same way. So here they are, the summary, and you'll see, again, the larger the word, the more frequently it came up. Someone said climate, and I just want to ask them in 1 or 2 sentences, tell me what that means. Is that cultural climate? Is that climate change? What do you mean?
Could I take a stab at that, Poonam?
Please.
Hi, this is Todd Hanley from Hotel Congress and Maynard's Marketing Kitchen. Climate, we have a unique situation living in a desert, so we're an arid environment. So with certain challenges of heat, certain challenges of water, we will not be able to get to an equitable, sustainable, economic, successfully diverse community.
Okay, that was immensely helpful, Todd. Thank you. Okay, good work. We are now zooming back in a little bit. We're going to go through that survey, that 9-question survey I told you about. This time you don't need to worry about your chat because your survey question is going to pop up. Let's do the first one. As you see that pop-up box, you will select your answer. Once you've selected an answer, your submit button will light up red, hit it, and you have responded. You'll see that there's very low stakes on the first question. We're calling it a practice question. So once you've answered, boom, see, this is a fast group. It took, I will tell you, the other 5 groups took a little bit longer. So this, you get the hang of it, right? So let's go to the second question, please. And most of these are pretty straightforward. How long have you lived in Tucson? And so we're going to roll through them because they're pretty self-explanatory. There's a couple that we want to stop and engage in discussion, but they'll come towards the end. Yeah, this is mind-blowing to me. Again, this is the 5th one of these conversations. Every single time that more than 30 years and the 20 to 30 are the 2 most frequently sought. So it speaks to the depth of devotion and commitment in your community, which is such a beautiful asset. And you're going to have to watch it because it could cause you to fight a little more intensely than others too, right? Next question, please. Do you live within the existing CBD? Most of you do not. Now, just for those of you that are good at math, there's 32 of us on the call. And so you can figure out how many are represented, but 81% of you do not. 1 of you, I think, don't know, but we can get to the answer if you wish. 4th question, please. Thinking about the times that you've been to the CBD or to downtown Tucson, the question is, what's taking you there? Why have you gone there? You put a lot of thought into that answer. Thank you. Yeah, so entertainment, music, museum, special events is number 1, followed pretty closely by visiting restaurants and bars, murals, art, public space. Beautiful. What is clear is that you are a community of fellowshippers. The activities that bring people together and allow them to make memories are the ways that you like to spend time, which is a beautiful thing. Next question, please. And this is thinking about the streetcar. So the streetcar's influence on downtown Tucson, in your opinion, has been? Well, listen, if I'm a Vice Mayor Cunningham, this is good news, very positive. So that's like a thumbs up. Good. So if I tally up very positive and somewhat positive.
I was one of those yes, super positive votes, so it's weighted. You know,
Okay.
I'm artificially inflating those stats. Just saying.
Listen, thank you for owning it. That makes you a rare bird. All right, next question, please. And this one we want to discuss, we want to toss around with you a little bit. As you're aware, the mayor and the city council have declared affordable and workforce housing as their key priority. So that's already happened. Question here for you is, which statement reflects your opinion about that priority? And so that we don't blow it again, Vice Mayor, would you not answer this question maybe?
Too late. But you'll be surprised what I put.
We won't know exactly how you answer, but let's see what everyone else says. Okay, so we know that he isn't celebrating his own genius, but let's see how much genius the rest of you perceive. Yeah, so Vice Mayor, you will be delighted to see this, right? Strongly agree, even without you in that strongly agree bucket.
I did not vote strongly agree.
I know, and I will tell you that this is now the 5th conversation, and that has been a unanimous and strong and resounding theme through all of them. Is that something close to 8 and 10 share that priority as clearly and as meaningfully as you do. So affordable workforce and affordable housing, it is super complicated. So I'm going to ask Corky if he's got any curiosity or wants to query a little bit deeper on this question.
Yeah, thank you, Poonam. I wanted to drill down a little bit and open it up for a little more conversation on a variety of topics. I'm going to start off talking about affordable housing, and Frankie and Shay in a little bit we'll talk about some of the other topics. But I want to go back a little bit and remind people what was said before. First of all, the CBD is a geographic area that the City Council has decided to think about increased reinvestment in that area. Number one, the GPLET, as Barbara said, the GPLET is one tool. And so you all may have positive or negative feelings about the GPLET, but I want to remind you that it is simply one tool in that CBD reinvestment strategy. Corin talked about the IID, and that's clearly another tool, and it has almost the identical boundaries as the CBD. What I want to do is kind of ask you to stretch your brains a little bit and think about what other tools and resources you need, or how to make the GPLET better for your needs, for your family, for your neighborhood, for your business, and just talk a little bit, kind of an open conversation about, I'm going to focus on affordable housing. And just let me preamble this by saying and elaborating a little bit on the comment earlier. 98% of new affordable housing in the United States is built through the low-income housing tax credit program. And almost all the new housing in the CBD has used that program. The problem with the program is that there's an equity investor that has to own the property in order to get the tax credit. And the way the GPLET works is the city of Tucson technically owns the property in order to get the tax abatement. And those two entities can't own the same property at the same time. And so that's why the GPLET is not usable for low-income housing tax credit programs. And I can tell you we've tried. We thought with a lot of attorneys about how that might happen and come up with nothing. But the most important thing I want to open the conversation is what are other models of affordable housing, and what do you think you'd like to see, and what resources might be available to support that? So who's next? Any comments?
Well, Corky, one of the big things that I'll say about some of the affordable housing models that I'm liking is some of the co-opted housing. that requires tenancy with the owner, that has to be owner occupied. I like that there's a project on, I mean, it's not even a project. It's a housing complex on Alvernon and 22nd where my uncle lives. And it is set up so that in order to own there, the owner has to live in it. And it is low income housing. I think it's a really good model. And I'd love to be able to apply that model in that I don't think it's a lot to ask that people who are in the lower income brackets be able to purchase a home or be able to purchase their residence. I don't think that's a lot to ask. And so that's the path I'm looking for. I'm looking for a way that we can have metrics with low income housing projects, whether or not they're, first of all, I don't even like the word low income housing. I just want to call it housing projects or housing programs, even a mesh of them, where there's a list of metrics that we can do, that we can apply all of the sans the GPLET, we can apply all of the possible incentives in the IID and in the CBD, all of the incentives that are statutory allowed to any project, whether it's in the district or not. And that's kind of where I'm at in this type of program. We have enough families that are struggling, and giving them the opportunity to purchase a house or residence, whether it's a townhome, condo, or even a single family, is totally worth it to us. The other thing is that we also have folks that are either disabled or they are elderly, and we have to have programs where they can own what they live in, but they can still have some type of co-opted care. And so those are the things that I'm kind of curious about this process. And those are the things that I'd like to see unfold as we keep going down the road. And with that, I will mute myself and just listen the rest of the time, I promise.
No, that was
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. That's really, really helpful. Other comments?
I have a novel idea, Corky.
Yeah.
For those people that don't know, I run the tax increment financing district downtown Rio Nuevo. We're a state tax TIF, Punim, so we get to reinvest our incremental tax. The city doesn't do that. You saw Barbara's presentation early on, where all of these incentives have created huge economic upsides and additional taxes, particularly sales tax. Why doesn't the city redirect those dollars or direct those dollars to things that it wants to accomplish, i.e. attainable housing, public art, mass transit, multimodal open space? Instead of it just going into the general fund, those dollars could be redirected into the types of development that the GPLET can't support. One of the things I think people now understand, and I've seen it on this call, the GPLET cannot bring you attainable housing. It doesn't work economically. There's going to have to be another tool. Part of that is to use the taxes that these programs create and redirect those.
That's great.
Thank you, Fletcher. That's great. Is there someone representing neighborhood group that would like to chime in?
Or representing just themselves?
Sure. Okay, we've gotten two good ideas. Keep in mind that the three of us, the bridge builders, are going to be writing recommendations to the mayor and council, precisely of the kind of recommendations we've heard from the vice mayor and from Fletcher McCusker. So tell us now. It's a real good chance to have a bigger voice.
Shay, I was going to go to the next question, but I just saw your hand up. So do you have?
Yeah, I was just going to input, one of the ideas I've thought about but haven't stated publicly, and it was something I was going to kick around in this report that Corky's talking about is potentially amending the IID. Again, we've spent so much time focused on the GPLET, but I had always wondered, and again, in the beginning, why a lot of cities that have these types of ordinances, they built in an affordable housing requirement. So you only get X, Y, or Z incentive if you provide 10% of your units to be for affordable housing, or you provide, 30% of whatever that agreement is. And again, and maybe there's a deeper incentive, right, to help that pencil out. Like, you can get even more density if you sign up for X, Y, or Z units.
Right.
And that's something, again, that I don't know if it's possible, but I'm curious if anyone else in the room has thoughts on that.
Listen, and I want to go to the next question. So I'm just going to say idea generation isn't about solving it with a single idea. Idea generation is about sharing the innovations so that we can have sort of seeds that get planted to solution. These are exactly the kinds of ideas that we're looking for. Remember, when you get the emails of follow-up, anything else that emerges as a suggestion, if you want to extend one of the ideas you've just heard, please do it. And I do want to go to the next question, if you don't mind. And then we've got open discussion at the end. So here's the next question. In addition to affordable workforce housing, what other types of investment do you believe mayor and council should be focused on in terms of the downtown area? And this answer, before you complete, scroll so that you can see all of the options. They're not all visible initially. Okay, so we know affordable workforce housing is priority 1. Here is, for the 32 of us in this call today, second highest priority for you would be public green spaces, followed very closely by renovation and reuse of existing buildings. And those two are sort of a little bit further ahead. Falling in third would be safer streets and better connectivity. That's really useful guidance for the mayor and council as they continue. Last question. Sorry, second last question. This is about the actual physical area now. So the question is, what areas around downtown should the city council focus on for investments? All right, I see sort of 4 that jumped. The first one is South 6th Avenue, 5 points, followed in a tie by Miracle Mile, the 05, Congress and Broadway corridor, which is downtown core, and then finally South Park Avenue, Millville. All right, last question, please. What types of community benefits should accompany GPLAT assisted development projects in the CBD? What matters the most to you? Wow, two that tied. Small and local business job creation. I will just share with you that that is the prevailing theme that we've seen in the other meetings as well. And followed equally, well, together with environmental sustainability, followed in a tie and very closely behind local contractors and historic preservation and adaptive reuse. That's fascinating. Okay, so I want to just stop for a minute on the small and local business job creation. I'm going to turn to our bridge builders. Are there ideas that we want to ask for, suggestions? I first want to hear from anyone who owns a business. If there's anyone in this conversation right now who is a business owner currently in the CBD, are any of you here?
Yeah, technically I am, I guess an owner. It's a family business. So Todd from Hotel Congress and Maynard's Market and Kitchen.
Okay. And then any other business owners who may not be in the CBD, I want to hear from you as well. What does that look like? When you say, clearly we hear you, provision of opportunity for local businesses, right? That's what I'm hearing. And so give us ideas of what that might look like. What does that mean? How do we do that? Suggestions, solutions. And I know, Frankie, you are the tip of the spear for helping small business people.
And I was, the past couple of meetings, we've been seeing that job creation, local businesses are very important, but I like to hear ideas. Fletcher had a really good point saying that we need to keep Tucson. So how can we incentivize, what kind of resources or ideas should be included in the expansion of the CBD? The G-Plate is one tool, IID is another tool, but in order to keep Tucson, we need to protect or have resources available for the small, the small local legacy businesses. So I'm open to ideas. Remember that our suggestions, the recommendations to the city council are going to be based on what we hear from you. So just, share your ideas, whatever you think should be included with the, the expansion of the CBD.
I don't know if this is of any real groundbreaking, perspective, but when it comes to utilizing local contractors, local subcontractors, throughout the development process. And for me, that seems like the most obvious first step towards ensuring we continue to reinvest back in our local community. I don't know if there's the ability to Fletcher's point, which I thought was brilliant, would be to reinvest portions of tax abatements into organizations, businesses that do truly keep us unique and different from the rest of the United States, whether or not it's an art or a venue or just in general, our local agriculture and our local, gastronomy has, lots of value to it. So I guess at the highest level, potentially just looking at that subcontractor, general contractor on down to reinvesting taxes into the small organizations and businesses that continue to offer us a place of uniqueness.
Thank you, Todd. David, I see that you're saying reducing the 8-year tax abatement. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I'm speaking from ignorance. I know it's an 8-year abatement, but why 8 years? Why not 6 years? Why not 4 years? Why not 10 years? I mean, what's magic about the 8 years? Is that in statute?
Yeah, that's the law, Dave. It's one of two, either an 8-year or a 25-year. That was passed by the legislature 2 sessions ago. So it's state law.
Okay.
So, if I could just sort of add a couple comments. One, when this first proposed, I strongly advocated for it. I really see tremendous value in having these types of incentives. Our community in the state of Arizona, we went through a very hard economic period, and we just don't have a lot of tools in the tool chest to support good quality strategic investment. This is one of those I've really seen. You look at the list, these projects for the most part are very localized, focused projects that I think had good return. one of my big concerns is actually how narrow it's been used. I mean, I think the fact we're talking about 23 projects over a 7-year period is really, I think, actually an unfortunate aspect of this. There were huge sections of the city that were added. I advocated in 2012 to add the Miracle Mile area because that area desperately needed investment then, and it even needs it more now. What I don't see is a companion structure to be able to actually go out and recruit projects, find people who are looking to make investments, and then link them with this and other incentives that are together. And one final comment just on the affordable housing component. I think one of the biggest, I agree, I think creating a percentage into these housing developments with a 20% or 10% requirement for affordable housing does make sense. We see that in other cities across the country. But I think that our city needs to go out, and our community, our city's lobbyists need to really work with the Arizona Department of Housing to change the LIHTC formula. The way the formula is, it's a point system, and it creates very little opportunity away from the streetcar alignment. So if you want to build affordable housing in other parts of the community that are maybe overlap with the existing central business district or the infill incentive district, it's not incentivized through that formula. And so that's something I think that needs to be more holistically looked at.
Corky, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Damien's comment. The point system has already changed in the last 2 years, so that association with fixed rail is gone. So the formula for LIHTC now is much broader and much more spread out through the city. Great suggestion, but it's already happened.
So, Damien, this is interesting. So we're sort of done with the survey and now moving sort of fairly naturally, I think, into the open discussion. I do want to invite Joe, Trish. I just want you to come out of the chat and into the conversation, because what Damien just said is, as he looks back, what I just heard you say, I think, Damien, was it has worked. It is delivering some real benefits to our community, and we should promote it and use it even more. Did I just hear that?
For me, it did. I think, I mean, my perception is there was a lot of concern about this, about, the renewal, but I think that is conflated with a lot of these other really invasive projects that have happened that have been incentivized in other ways. And so it's understanding a little bit deeper.
So I think that's it's a perception and a perspective that many have. In the chat room, there's a few that have a very different perspective. So part of community conversation is we got to have them courageously looking at each other. It's real easy to say things about other people and their perspectives when I don't need to look at them, right? So I want to ask Joe or Trish to come in, because so I'm going to try to summarize what I think I hear, Joe, but I trust you to do a better job at depicting your own perspective. But here's the counter, right? Is that no, this is actually corporate welfare, right? And so I want to just understand, Joe. So you were kind enough you got here early, so I gave you a shout out. But I hear some of you used in there that said it's a giveaway. And what I'm hearing is that you don't determine, have you seen anything beneficial in the CBD and the G-Plat over the last 7 years? Because I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll chime in for it. And yeah. Sure, and I think I hit that kind of in the last meeting for anybody who wasn't here. When we look at the list of those projects, there are some good ones on. We see Brother John's Barbecue, and we see Cirrus Visual, and some of those ones that have been Bill G-Plats that help small businesses, come into being or facilitate their expansion. Things like that are things that I think the whole community can get behind. But I think there definitely is a perception when we look at the bigger projects that is where we're doing big tax abatements of $4 or $5 million a shot on things like the Cadence, or things like, we've been having a conversation online the past couple of days about the Union on 6th. And why, the biggest turnout I've ever seen in the last, few years at a Tucson City Council meeting was when it was announced that we were tearing up 4th Avenue and putting on that big mixed-use development that's built by Greystar. And Greystar is a company with, last I checked, $36 billion in assets under management. They manage 500,000 units of housing in the US alone. And that's the company we're saying, please come here, build. You don't have to pay property taxes for the next 8 years. And if we have, you know, we can say that long term, maybe they'll make up for it, or that, you know, we can have, you know, sales areas with increased sales tax, and we'll do, you know, keep those sales taxes local. But none of that's for certain. We know that, especially during COVID, we've seen issues with different revenue streams. We know that sales tax is, in fact, a regressive tax that the poorest among us pay disproportionately. And Tucson's a city with a huge poverty rate, last I checked, second in the West of any considerable city size to El Paso. So it feels like we're stressing those people. And when I look at studies like, I think in meeting 2, I linked a study from the University of Minnesota that was about what happens around construction. And if you're increasing market rate units at the top of the market, things like the Rendezvous Urban Flats, that those expensive units around the new construction really stabilize. But at the bottom of the market, the 25% of the most affordable, you're seeing rents go up. So when people talk about deflation and gentrification, those are real concerns.
Joe, vigor and brevity is our theme. So thank you. And here's what I'm going to challenge you to do. Here's what I'm going to challenge you to do. It is easy to define the boundaries of what I don't like. It is a fantastically more difficult challenge to say, therefore, here's what I would suggest. So what I just heard you do was provide rich and clear definitional boundaries of the things that you don't like. But what I didn't hear was, therefore, here's what we should do. Because I don't know that anyone here disagrees with any of the things that you said. But if the alternative is let's do nothing, then you're going to get disagreement. Because then we leave what benefits do exist. And so I am going to just encourage you to share the ideas, share the solutions, because that's really what the mayor and the council are looking for. Because these are complicated issues and they exist on many dimensions and many levels. And the idea is that you do the very best you can to balance and be thoughtful about all the different dimensions and trade-offs and considerations, right?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, David's got a good point in chat about context sensitivity. But also,
are you offering?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to give you like 2 sentences and that's it. If you're offering a solution, otherwise, I feel like we have an obligation to let others wade in as well.
Smart growth. I feel like the Historic 4th Avenue Coalition has talked about smart growth and contextual development, and we've been doing that for a few years.
Okay, that's awesome. Smart growth, contextual. So you're going to submit those kinds of ideas in more than 2 sentences, but not in this conversation. That's through the website, right?
For sure.
Okay, good. All right, I've violated vigor and brevity myself, and so Joe and I did that very well together. Sorry, but there's a bunch of you here. Some of you we've not heard from, and so those are the voices that I really want to encourage.
So this is Trish. I'll weigh in a little bit on some things that we would like to see in the community. Absolutely.
Great.
And I think when we talk about wise investment and things that we'd like to see happen, we have lost a lot of local small businesses over the past, I'd say 10 to 15 years. And I would be really interested in seeing the city invest in those existing enterprises and sustaining them. So we've got, just to give some kind of examples, there were quite a few businesses that disappeared from our downtown when the streetcar was being put in. And a few of those business owners I know, and they tried to relocate to other parts of the city further down Broadway. And as we did more of these projects, they found themselves pushed out a second time. And so when we say things and we talk about gentrification and we talk about funding these really large scale projects, there's people who are citizens, residents here currently who are struggling. And we feel like those needs are
Okay, got it.
being set aside to some degree. So,
I would
and there's
be-
a lot of historic buildings we've lost that had we maybe put those investments, El Patador on Broadway was another restaurant we lost and the building razed to the ground. So just maybe looking at some alternative ways to invest and not.
So and I'm going to assume that in that last question, when we talked about community benefits, that you probably answered yes to small and local business job creation and to historic preservation and adaptive reuse, which seem like, based on what we've heard the last 5 meetings, the 2 strongest themes out of the community in terms of benefits that people are seeking to receive. So the question becomes, what are the ideas and solutions to accomplish that? So what could we do to have more?
Yeah, and if we talk about those community benefits agreements, the first thing we have to talk about is their enforceability, right? Does the community, especially when we are talking about slum and blight designated areas, if those community benefits agreements are implemented there, does the community, right now the responsibility falls on the community to make a legal challenge when those agreements are violated.
So that's a sequencing thing. So I hear your view that we should get enforceability first. I would observe that we first got to decide what we want to do before we decide how we're going to measure and monitor whether we did it. So that's just a sequencing thing. Right now, we're just focused on what are the benefits and how do we achieve them? How do we realize them, right? That's right now in the overall process, sort of the curiosity that we're maximizing right now. So
yeah, we have them and we've implemented them. They just lack that enforceability piece. I guess that's where I would challenge that.
I got it. Okay. And make sure that that is somewhere expressed in comments through the website so that they will be captured and then summarized and shared with the Mayor and Council. I think that's
absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else have we not heard from? Wilda, you're either trying to give me a high five or you have your hand raised.
I have my hand raised. Thanks. My issue with GPLEC, it comes from, where I was raised. There was a lot of rent control. And it's basically a very similar program. And, my concern is poverty and how do we, solve that? So one of the ways in which I think that the GPLEC should be changed is that, after the 8 years, do not allow for those rents to go up. That's going to help people stay in their places, in their homes. And, the investors will already have had a nice run for 8 years. So, they can go look someplace else. But if we keep doing what rent control did, it's going to create the same kind of problems over and over again for the people who don't have much to live on.
Great insight.
Thank you.
Great insight. Thank you for that. Okay, who else have we not heard from? Hi, Michael.
Yeah, Michael Becker. I'm a local architect and work in and around downtown and worked on a lot of projects. I want to agree with some of Damien's points. I think it's the GPLET in combination with the IID has been successful in some projects. And the way I try to think about it is we're obviously between the 2 tools, we as a community are giving the developer some value, obviously, whether it's the tax abatement or it's, the zoning relief that we give or increased density. And I guess what concerns me is I don't necessarily see the return on that investment in terms of, as an architect, in terms of what's actually built. So some of these buildings they don't have public space. They don't have the kind of, they're not integrated in the community in the way that I think it should be more critically looked at. But I also know from working on some of these projects, and I think David brought the point up that these kinds of financial and zoning land use tools are necessary for these projects to work at all. So if they don't exist, nothing will happen because the developers are trying, they need to have a return on their investment, and it takes some of these tools tip that scale to the point where these projects actually go, and they wouldn't happen otherwise. And so when you start talking about tying things like affordable housing and other things to some of the tools that we have, I think it becomes more difficult to make these work. So, another approach to getting the things that we want is to provide more incentive if these features are added. So if someone does affordable housing, I think someone else brought up the point that maybe they get more density or something else, so that, the GPLED obviously isn't the tool that can fix poverty necessarily. I think that's a bigger conversation, and that we as a community need to take on. But I think this tool, I think it, in combination with some of the zoning tools, just need to be refined in a way that we're sure that there is a benefit coming back to the community and whatever is physically built, because these things will be here for 50 years. I mean, some particularly the large projects have a substantial impact on downtown. The corner that Corin showed has been transformed completely in the last 10 years. Whether it's good or bad, that's comes down to a certain degree comes down to it's very subjective, but at the same time, it's like, is this the way we want to see our city evolve?
No, it's a rich, it's a great thought, Michael. So I just want to play it back. It's almost a continuum of incentives, which would increase in strength based on number of community priorities that could also be achieved. So the more you do, the more you're incentivized more to do.
Potentially you get more incentive, yeah.
Yeah, for a benefit. Okay. Great idea. Anything else? Who else?
I spoke before, but I agree with what we control is the design, the quality of the materials used, and make sure it fits in with our existing culture and what we want Tucson to look like. Bringing in projects and ideas from people that don't live here is fine, but it should be adapted to what really is going to reflect well upon our community. We want to take pride in what's been built in the end, instead of seeing, let's say, another Cadence project, which is really just architecturally awful.
Thank you. Tana, were you going to say something? I just saw you come on. You turned your video on, so I was like.
I did. I can't figure out where the raise the hand thing is.
Listen, you have successfully accomplished all of it. We can hear you, we can see you, and we saw your hand. We don't need to see your hand.
Thank you. I've brought this up in the chat before, and I did talk to Corky about it a little bit. Historic Fourth Avenue Coalition was the first association. It was formed basically to create a community benefits agreement with the Union Student Housing, so that the neighborhood and the businesses in historic Fourth Avenue would be represented and have their voices heard in that development. And that CBA goes along with the project. So if it were to sell, it's legally bound to that project. So they have to adhere to those agreements, in perpetuity, as far as I understand it. So I would love for the city to, as far as GPLETs go and supporting businesses, to try to figure out a way to have that kind of agreement go along with different projects moving forward, because it's not an expensive process. They had to get lawyers involved and raise money to make it happen. So it would be really great for the neighborhoods to feel like they're being heard and represented, and the businesses to have their say in, keeping it local, integrating public art, the design for the district. I mean, Historic Fourth Avenue Coalition has been able to keep up with Chase in this process and really, hold them accountable for things that they agreed to in the beginning. So I would love for that to happen you know, and maybe using HVAC as a resource center to help down the road.
Can I respond to that comment? Because that was an awesome comment.
Of course you can, because you're the vice mayor of us. Go ahead.
I think that the idea of having a CBA staff that's number one job is to facilitate CBAs and also to help enforce them, facilitate not only the process of establishing them, but also enforcing or holding the parties accountable to meeting those requirements set forth for the CBAs is a worthwhile investment for the city. And I also think that staffing that office can come out of what the GPLET savings in. I think that the GPLET savings to the developer can be part of that. GPLET can be part of their savings on their long-term finance plan can be taken by the city to finance the CBA office. And I'm totally on board with that. I think that would be, it would probably cost, I mean, the first CBAs we did, obviously, nobody really knew. We were kind of just starting them from scratch. But now we kind of know what they are. We know what mistakes we made. We've a couple that there's definitely been some accusations of people welching on them and whatever. So having a CBA staff or office within the city to ensure that those, one, are facilitated so neighborhoods and neighbors don't have to hire lawyers is an outstanding idea. And the other piece is that office advocating. And by the way, if it's a situation where we don't want to perceive a conflict of interest, what we could do is create a fund, and a third party could be the neighborhood advocate, and they would not be necessarily employed by the city of Tucson. So I think there'd be some finance mechanisms we have to look at, but I think that there is what I'm saying is there is an avenue and a path to establishing just what she's asking for, and I think it's very focused and very good as far as enhancing the CBA process we have.
All right, Vice Mayor Cunningham, you are awesome for two reasons. I'm going to give you two very specific reasons. One, for the multitasking commitment to community that you have demonstrated for the past 90 minutes by playing host and head immunizer and vaccinator and all things in between. That's one. Two, you just made incontrovertibly clear how this entire intention and process, why they're doing it in the first place. The mayor and council said, we want to hear from folks. We want to get input and ideas from folks so that we can be differently informed, so that we can make thoughtful and well-informed decisions. And you just showed us how magical that is when it happens. So Tana, how glad are we that you figured out your technology, because that was all it took. And thank you, Vice Mayor, for being the kind of leader and servant who listens and meaningfully hears what we have to say. So I got to wind us up because we got 1 minute till you start she's keeping us over and she didn't tell us that. So let me tell you what happened.
Well, I'm gonna sign off. Thank you, everybody.
Go vaccinate.
I'm gonna sign off, and you guys are the best. This is a great collection of folks in Tucson, and I see Colette out here and Corky and this is the all-star team of Tucson citizens. So thanks for everybody for coming. I'm gonna jump off and let Panam take you home, but let's everybody, if you can give a little up sprinkles to Panam. She did a tremendous job today. That's what I'm talking about. I could not have facilitated anything like that. You are unbelievable. Thank you very much, and I'm signing off. Thank you.
Mic drop. The Vice Mayor just did a mic drop. So here's what happens next. Monday, remember, you'll get an email. Look for it. It'll come about midday if past this prologue. Two things in that email. One, an opportunity to provide, without any 140 character limitations, any ideas, comments, thoughts, make them specific, make them action oriented. Please send them because we want to hear them. That's one. Two, it's going to say, do you want to receive periodic updates through the journey? Correct answer would be yes. Just get in the community minivan. Let's journey this thing together, right? And the second call to action, tell your friends. If they give you eye contact in the grocery store above the mask, you say, hey, have you filled out your survey? Just go to TucsonConnect.com, surveys there, English and Spanish. They can fill it out. Every ward office has it. By the end of this week, it'll be in the Star. And then Barbara, what's the Spanish language paper?
It is La Estrella.
La Estrella. So it'll be appearing both places. So please send that word out. We want to hear from as many as is humanly possible. And then I'm going to give you the last word. Go back to the chat. So I operate with the belief that each of us have some really awesome array of very unique native gifts that we are born to share to make the world better. So I want you to quickly claim one of your native gifts, and thinking about the conversation we've just had in the future that we all dream about, in that one word, I want you to put in the chat the gift that you will offer and pledge to this community as we go through this process. What is that one native gift that you're going to bring to this to deliver on the vision that we have together? I want to see what that is. Never give up. Yeah, that's Barbara Coffey. She's right. Connection. Thank you, Tana. Showing up. So important because it kind of matters. Creativity, communication, open-mindedness, collaboration, persistence. Okay, there's more of you that answered the call. You get the point. Honesty, growth, support. These are beautiful things. So when you look in the morning at that gorgeous face that looks back at you in the mirror, just make a commitment to that person that, yep, this is the gift. I'm going to share it. And when it gets complicated and when we start to disagree, don't forget, bring that gift to the table, because like water, if we just keep flowing, if we just stay in it, if we don't parse, cut, and run, if we don't start screaming because that's the only way we think we can be heard, if we just stay in it, there is nothing that we can't do together. And I got to tell you, as a lucky electron orbiting around this nucleus that is this amazing heart, humanity, and soul spirit that is Tucson, you are going to figure this out. And you're going to figure it out in a way that makes sense, that's going to make you proud, and it's going to deliver on the vision that all of you have that is so unanimously beautiful for what the future of this community is going to look like. So thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. And don't forget, tell at least 10 friends to fill out the survey. There's no accountability around it. I just want you to do it anyway.